is this set up for an intense opening lap with all these drivers trying to work their way up the field?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's going to be very intense on the opening lap. And like you mentioned, Kobe, you've got two drivers that are in a heated battle for second place. I know that, it's not the championship. It probably doesn't mean quite as much to a guy that's won 7 of them already. But for Checo in particular, this has kind of been the white whale, if you will, for Red Bull. They've done everything in their history and everything in just the not too distant past with, Max's championships the last several years and breaking all sorts of wins records and podium records and all sorts of great stuff. They've still yet to take 1-2 in the constructors. They came very close last year. Checo's trying to close the deal for them this season with how dominant their car has been, but he struggled a little bit in the middle of the season and is trying to find that form again. Now he's stuck back in the midfield, trying to work his way back up. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that second place battle in just a moment here, but I think that that's just one element that you've got going on in the midfield as well. You've got the Williams starting up quite a bit further up the grid than they're used to, obviously, like we were just talking about. The McLarens have the opposite effect. They're further down the grid than I think Lando Norris in particular was certainly hoping for. So there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of variables going on in the middle of that starting grid. I think it's going to be a very chaotic opening lap, and hopefully everybody gets through the first turn cleanly and we can have a great race from there.
Yeah, we're in an interesting spot here because that run down to turn 1 is very, very short and it's a very tight turn. Outside of that, though, the opening lap, you've got Hamilton, Sainz, and Perez all around that 10th spot, which they're all going to have some fast cars. That could, Sainz particularly, going to be able to come up because he's proven that car has pace. Whereas Hamilton, struggled with straight line speed last time out, and he's qualifying down in 10th this time out. Perez has had some aggressive starts, but ultimately tends to lose out on the first lap. Lando Norris coming from 15th, when that car has been ahead of the Mercedes, all we heard from Hamilton was that car is a rocket on the straights. That could be because Hamilton's car was actually just having some trouble on the straights, but his teammate is up in P3. So this we'll see what the setup changes are on the Mercedes. Maybe they're just not getting it in the window. Maybe they figured it out and it's going to be a rocket come this evening. I really think that as much as the first lap could have some chaos, the real chaos is really coming from the pit stops. We're talking about potentially a 4-stopper. Some have even been talking about with the way these tires are wearing and the way these tires are working out. We've got teams that fire up their tires very well, like Ferrari and Haas up at the top. So I think that if there's going to be any chaos, I don't think it's up at the front. I don't think it's the top 5. It's going to be the back of the grid and the mid pack for sure in lap 1.
Yeah, there should definitely be a lot to look out for on this opening lap. People are going to be counting down the hours and minutes, leading up to lights out, and away they go, as they say. And one key battle that we're going to be looking at, second place in the driver's standings. If Lewis Hamilton does not gain 8 points or more on Sergio Perez, Checo will clinch second place in the drivers' championship. Perez will also be on the same row as Hamilton. 2 key passing zones are turn 5 and the end of Las Vegas Boulevard on the strip. Joy, does Hamilton have a chance of keeping his second place hopes alive, or does this favor the king of the streets?
He's got to outscore Checo by 8 points. And actually, this is a bit of a misnomer because if he outscores Checo by 8 points, he has to win in Abu Dhabi and Checo has to DNF, which that is so much further out of the realm of possibility, especially this year, in a year where Max Verstappen is so dominant and that Mercedes is not fighting the way it has been in the past. So he really needs to win by, I believe it's 14 points. He needs to beat Checo to keep that second place hope actually alive. So I think this is Checo. I think he's going to squeak by the skin of his teeth. It's going to be close. I think Hamilton's going to gain more points this weekend and at the final race. But I think Checo is going to walk away with it.
Yeah, questions like this are always a little tricky to answer because things can change very quickly in Formula One or in most motorsports as well. And I think I'm gonna have to agree with Joey here. I think that it's going to be too hard for Lewis Hamilton to make the points necessary in this race and then as well as in Abu Dhabi next weekend. I think that I think that this season it's Checo taking it in second place. I think Hamilton's gonna have to wait till next season.
Well, I've said all throughout this year that, as disappointing as Checo has been in qualifying, a lot of times he can still make up spots during the race and come home with like a 5th or 6th place finish, if you will. In that case, Lewis Hamilton starting, in a similar position is going to have to do similar things, working his way up the grid. If they can't work their way that far up the grid and they both end up, 7th or 8th, there's only 8, 6, 4 points available depending on which spot you fall in on the back half of the top 10 there. That's how much he needs to outscore Checo by in the first place. So if Lewis comes home on the back end of the top 10, it's going to be over from there regardless of what Checo does. I think there's an outside chance that Lewis will have a mathematical chance at second place going into Abu Dhabi. But to your point, Joey, it would be a situation where he's got to win, set the fastest lap, and Checo would have to DNF or have such a bad race that he doesn't even score points. So I think realistically speaking, as long as Checo can just bring the car home the next 2 weeks, not take any unnecessary risks. If he just comes home with a 5th place finish here and a 6th place finish there, I think it's pretty much game over for Lewis Hamilton in second place. But it is a little bit telling that, as frustrating as that Mercedes W14 has been this year for Lewis Hamilton in particular, that he's as close as he is right now to a driver who is driving the same car that Max Verstappen's won, 15 of 16 races with, 10 in a row. And give Checo credit. He's won 2 of the first 4 races this year. I think it's very easy to forget that at this point in the year. We thought very briefly we might actually have a legitimate championship battle between our top 2 drivers here in this ultra-dominant car. And then, of course, Max Verstappen went on his winning streak and put an end to those doubts if we ever had them in the first place. But to answer the question, I think it's a very slim chance. It's a mathematical chance. But as long as Checo just keeps the car clean, I think he's probably going to have it wrapped up.
Yeah, true that. And another great points battle that we're watching is for 4th place. Fernando Alonso at 198, Lando Norris at 195, and Carlos Sainz at 192. Joey, do you see a clear favorite of who'll leave with 4th place in the points after Las Vegas?
Well, so this is the thing. I think Sainz can come back on this. He's proven that the car is very, very fast in Las Vegas. And to that allocation point, he's taken on new components. So this car is theoretically, we don't know what components went on, theoretically in a better position reliability wise to score points. Now, Ferrari always has the potential to pull a Ferrari. So that could be what undoes this opportunity. But I think Sainz historically has been someone who scores his points in the second half of the season. And we saw that, coming back from the break and him going into back-to-back podiums and a win. So he is always a kind of late game racer, I think. And he could definitely sneak his way back up to 4th.
Yeah, if this was any other race weekend at any other Grand Prix, I would have said that it'd be Norris leaving in 4th place. But seeing how the McLarens have not been doing too well this weekend and how the track doesn't really suit their car, I would say that if it's down to Alonso and Sainz, if Ferrari manages to not mess up their strategies and Carlos can overtake all the cars ahead of him, I would hand it to him then. Because I personally feel like, as Joey mentioned, all great points, how they've got the newer parts. So technically speaking, their car should be performing better then. But, there's still chances where he can mess up or not. Ferrari can struggle with their strategies, which is a big problem that we've seen happening in Ferrari this past season. But, if you take Norris out of the pick and it's just down to Alonso and Sainz, I think that Carlos is going to leave with 4th place.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Carlos Sainz is probably in the best position. They have a good car that works well at this track, just as well as it worked on the streets of Singapore. And yeah, it's a tall order, thinking that Ferrari's strategy is going to go well, because typically when the races fall into their hands, strategy ends up messing them up, and it's game over from there. And we'll see if Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, if both of those Ferraris can have a good day for the Scuderia and the Tifosi, big Ferrari fan base. And yeah, look at McLaren, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri. Not a good time out there on the Las Vegas Strip. And Zach Brown was bringing up the point of the budget cap that they have now in Formula One, and how they decide what type of tracks they're going to invest in the wind tunnel at, try to get their car to work at the certain tracks. And Zach Brown was basically saying, they spend most of their time on the higher downforce tracks, since there's more of those on the schedule than the lower downforce tracks like this Las Vegas track. So that's probably a good reason why we're not seeing McLaren, up towards the front of the grid like we've seen in recent races, and now towards the back of the pack in the midfield, gonna have to try to fight their way through the pack. So it very well could be a really tough Las Vegas Grand Prix.